My phone was only supposed to be charging. That's it. I plugged it in, set it face down on the counter, and walked away. I had dishes to do, leftovers to put away. The kind of nothing tasks you do when you're trying not to think too hard about anything. But when I came back, the screen was lit up, and there it was. The same notification I'd been ignoring for 6 years. One unplayed voicemail from Dad. I don't know how many times I've accidentally touched that notification and quickly hit the home button like I'd touched a hot stove. I don't know how many times I've stared at it while lying in bed at 2 a.m., convincing myself I'd listen tomorrow, or next week, or after I was in a better headspace. 6 years. The man had been gone for 6 years, and I still couldn't press play. People always say grief hits you in waves. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that some waves aren't waves at all. Some of them are just walls. Walls you build yourself, brick by brick, because the water on the other side scares you more than the wall ever could. My dad's name was Gerald. People called him Jerry. I called him Dad for the first 20 years of my life, and then I called him almost nothing at all for the last 4. That's the part that still sits wrong in my chest. He died in October, a Tuesday. My aunt called me and said something like, "Honey, your father passed this morning," and I remember thinking she meant someone else. I remember my brain going through a list. Which father? Like that was a question I had. Like I had extras. I drove the 6 hours to Indiana alone. I didn't call anyone. I just got in the car with a half-empty Dunkin' cup and drove. And it wasn't until I was somewhere in Ohio, somewhere flat and colorless and nothing, that I realized I had a voicemail from him, left 4 days before he died. 4 days. You have to understand something about me and my dad. We weren't estranged in a dramatic way. There was no big blowout, no slammed doors, no screaming match I could point to and say, that's when everything broke. It was quieter than that, slower, the way things rot when you're not watching. It started with the divorce. My parents split when I was 19, and I handled it the way most 19-year-olds handle things, badly. And while blaming someone, I blamed him, not because he was the villain. Looking back now, I'm not even sure there was a villain, but I needed one, and he was there. He moved out of the house on Sycamore. He got an apartment in a part of town I never visited. He called. I answered sometimes, less and less, and then barely at all. And then I moved to Portland, and the distance made it easier to pretend the not calling was just logistics. It wasn't logistics. I was punishing him for something I couldn't even fully articulate, something about choosing to leave, something about our family not being worth fighting harder for, something I probably got wrong, but couldn't admit at the time. The last time I saw him in person was Thanksgiving, 3 years before he died. My cousin Michelle hosted. Dad was there, sitting in Uncle Randy's recliner because Randy had back problems and let Dad have it. He was wearing this burgundy sweater my mom had bought him years ago, before everything. He looked older, thinner. His hair was completely white by then, which I wasn't prepared for. He hugged me when I walked in and said, "There she is," like I was something he'd been looking for. We made it through the meal. We talked about surface things, my job, the weather, some story about his neighbor's dog. He laughed at something Michelle said. I watched his hands when he talked, the way he always used them too much, always gesturing. I got that from him. I do the same thing, and I didn't realize it until that moment. When I left, he walked me to my car. It was cold. He'd forgotten his coat. He said, "You doing okay? Really?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I'm fine." And I got in the car. That was it. That was the last time. Here's the thing about the voicemail I didn't know until much later. He tried to call me twice that week. I let both go to voicemail. The first one I listened to same day, deleted it immediately. He said something like, "Hey, just calling to check in. Give me a call when you get a chance." Normal. The kind of nothing message that could have been from anybody. I told myself I'd call back. I didn't. The second message, the one I couldn't open, came in on a Thursday night. I saw the notification. I was in the middle of something. I don't even remember what. I thought, I'll listen later. He died the following Monday. And now, here I am, 33 years old, doing dishes in my kitchen in Portland. And his voice is sitting in my phone like a sealed envelope I've been carrying in my coat pocket for 6 years, terrified of what's inside. If stories about parents, regret, and second chances stay with you long after they're over, you're exactly where you belong. The first year after he died, I convinced myself the voicemail was probably nothing. Just another check-in. Hey, give me a call. I'd built the whole narrative. It was nothing. It was routine. It was just dad doing what dads do when they're trying to stay connected to daughters who won't let them. If I played it and it was nothing, then I'd wasted 6 years being haunted by a voicemail about the weather. But what if it wasn't nothing? That was the year I started to spiral a little. I'd catch myself wondering. He had a doctor's appointment that month. Had he gotten bad news? Was he calling to tell me something? Was the voicemail him saying, "I'm sick, I need you, please come home"? And I hadn't answered. The second year, I started to get angry. Not at myself, at him. Which makes no sense. I know that. But grief doesn't make sense. I started thinking, if he had something important to say, he would have kept trying. He would have called Michelle. He would have called my aunt. He wouldn't have left one voicemail and just stopped. Unless he was proud. Too proud. He was proud. He was stubborn in that quiet Midwestern way where you don't push, you don't beg, you just offer once, and then you wait. Maybe he offered once, and I made him wait. The third year, something happened that shifted everything. Michelle called me on a random Wednesday in February. We talked every few months, nothing heavy. But that day, she said, I found something when we were clearing out Uncle Jerry's stuff. He'd kept a box, nothing dramatic. Just a shoebox in the closet of his apartment. Inside was a collection of things that, she said, she didn't know how to describe it. She said it was like a scrapbook, but not really. Printed emails I'd sent him years earlier before we got weird. A photo from my college graduation that I didn't even know he had. A birthday card I'd sent him when I was maybe 14, the kind with a bad joke on the front. A newspaper clipping from some small local paper where I'd been mentioned for something work-related. I couldn't even remember what. He'd found it somehow. He'd cut it out, and there was a sticky note on the inside lid of the box. Michelle read it to me over the phone. It said, "For when she's ready." I had to put the phone down. I went into my bathroom and sat on the floor with my back against the tub for a long time. For when she's ready? I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it was for me or for him. I didn't know if he was waiting for me to come back or if he was just holding on to the fact that I might. Either way, he'd been saving me. The whole time I was punishing him for leaving, he was in his little apartment on the other side of the country, saving every piece of evidence that I existed, that I mattered to him, that I was still his daughter, even when I wasn't acting like it. I cried harder on that bathroom floor than I did at his funeral. After that, I tried to listen to the voicemail. I got close. 3 different times over the next year, I got the phone out. I opened the voicemail screen. I put my finger on the play button. And I couldn't do it. It wasn't even fear of what he'd say. I'd gotten past that. It was something else. Something more complicated. As long as that voicemail was unplayed, as long as I hadn't heard his voice, there was a version of him that was still speaking, still reaching out, still trying. The moment I played it, the moment the message ended, that was it. There was no more. The conversation was over. He would be completely, irrevocably, finally gone. The voicemail was the last place he was still alive, and I was terrified to kill him. I want to stop for a second and ask you something. If your parent or someone you love left you one final message, would you listen immediately, or would fear stop you too? Because I used to judge myself for it. I thought I was weak, avoidant, broken in some way I couldn't name. And maybe I was, but I've talked to enough people since then to know I wasn't alone. Grief does that. It makes you hoard the last crumbs. It makes you hold on to the almost instead of facing the end. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human. The night I finally listened, it was raining, not storming. Just that soft Oregon rain that sounds like static. I'd been at my kitchen table for about an hour, not doing anything in particular. I had a mug of tea that had gone cold, the kind of night where the whole world feels a little bit muted. I don't know what made that night different from the other 2,000 nights I'd chosen not to listen. I couldn't tell you if something shifted or if I was just finally tired enough of carrying it. I picked up my phone, I opened the voicemail, and I pressed play. His voice. I'd forgotten the specific quality of it. I'd remembered his voice. Generally, I could hear it in my head when I tried, but I'd forgotten the texture, the slight roughness at the edges, the way he always sounded a little out of breath, like he'd just come in from outside. He said my name, just my name first, and I almost had to stop. He said, "Hey, it's Dad," like I wouldn't know, like he was leaving a message for someone who might need the clarification. He cleared his throat, the way he always did. He said, I know we haven't been great at this, at staying in touch, and I know a lot of that's on me." I pressed pause. I sat there for probably 30 seconds. Then I pressed play. He said he wasn't calling about anything specific. He said he'd been thinking about me. He said he'd driven past a place we used to go. Some pancake diner we used to go on Saturday mornings when I was little. Must have been torn down now, he said. Replaced by a cell phone store. He laughed a little at that. The kind of laugh that isn't funny but is sad, in a way that still sounds like a laugh. He said he thought about those Saturday mornings a lot. He said, "I don't think I ever told you what those meant to me. You'd always order the blueberry ones and never finish them, and I'd eat the rest, and you'd get mad because you'd want them back once they were gone." I laughed. I actually laughed, sitting there alone in my kitchen at 11 p.m. with rain on the windows, because he was right. I did that every single time. I would always want them back. He said, "I just wanted to hear your voice, I guess. If you get a chance to call, that'd be real nice. If not, that's okay too. I'm not going anywhere." He paused, and then he said the thing that I have thought about every single day since. He said, "You turned out real good, kiddo. I just want you to know I see that. I'm proud of you. I always have been. I should have said that more." And then the message ended. I sat there for a long time. The tea was cold. The rain was still going. My phone screen had gone dark. He wasn't angry. He wasn't blaming me. He wasn't saying goodbye. He didn't know he was saying goodbye. He was just a dad, sitting somewhere in Indiana, remembering blueberry pancakes, thinking about his daughter, wanting to hear her voice. That's it. That's the whole thing. I'd spent 6 years afraid of a message about blueberry pancakes. And I don't mean that to sound small. It was the opposite of small. It was the most enormous thing I've ever heard in my life, because it meant he didn't die angry. It meant he spent his last week thinking about Saturday mornings. It meant the last thing he said to me was that he was proud. I didn't deserve that, but he gave it to me anyway. I called Michelle that same night. It was late. She answered groggy and alarmed, and I said, "I listened to it." She didn't say anything for a second. Then she said, "Oh, honey." I said, "He talked about the pancake diner." She said, "He talked about that place all the time." That wrecked me all over again. We stayed on the phone for 2 hours. She told me things I didn't know, that he'd kept a photo of me on his bathroom mirror, that he'd talked about me to her kids like I was still part of his daily life, even when I wasn't, that he never once said a bad word about the distance between us, not once. She said, "He understood you more than you gave him credit for," and I believe her. I believe him. I just wish I'd gotten the chance to tell him that. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this, don't wait another 6 years. I have the voicemail saved to 3 different places now. Cloud backup, my laptop, a voice memo. I'm not losing it again. I listen to it sometimes, not often, just when I need to. When I need to hear his voice. When I need to be reminded that love doesn't always sound the way you expect it to. That sometimes it sounds like a slightly embarrassing story about pancakes and a diner that doesn't exist anymore. I started going to therapy about 8 months after that night, something I should have done years earlier, but I got there eventually. My therapist asked me once what I would say to him if I could. I thought about it for a long time. I said, "I think I'd just say, 'Me too, Dad. Me too. I don't know what message is sitting unread in your life right now. Maybe it's a voicemail. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's just a phone call you keep meaning to make to someone who is very much still here, very much still answering. I can't tell you what to do with it. I can only tell you what I know. 6 years is a long time to carry something, and blueberry pancakes taste different when someone you love isn't there to eat the ones you don't finish. That's all.